Hey, what is up, everyone? Welcome to Market Psychology 101, where we look for value in the markets when there's fear and are cautious when there's greed. In today's video, I'm going to be taking a look at the stock market, as well as stocks whose earnings reports have come out this week, any stocks that have products I might use, or stocks that I am familiar with. So I'll be ignoring a lot of the Chinese stocks. I'll be taking a look at stocks probably like AutoZone, Lowe's. Do we see any over here? None that I really use over there. If there's any products you like and use, I highly recommend taking a look at the charts, doing some research, seeing if those have some good value. I don't shop at Urban Outfitters. I'm curious about Target. We'll take a brief look at NVDA, even though I talked about that in the Magnificent Seven stock video I did earlier. And yeah, maybe INTU. We'll take a look at some of those. Ralph Lauren, they have decent clothes, said every guy over 40 years old. Anyways, let's go to CNN, fear and greed. Right now we're in neutral. We were in low greed and we've come down a little bit. So we'll see if we can find out why that is on the charts. And on pie vesting, you can see we had this bounce, but maybe it's coming back down to somewhere around that neutral level. With crypto, fear and greed, something interesting to me. I talked about how we're in this downtrend, but then it looked like it's changed direction. Now, it's interesting how we are peaked right here because what just happened was we had the Ethereum ETF approval. And the last time we had an ETF approval for Bitcoin, that was here. Notice how Bitcoin had this accumulation right in the middle, and then the ETF was approved right here. Then Bitcoin had a 20-ish% sell-off. Now we had another 20% sell-off. Things have come back up a little bit to around the all-time high levels of 21. So I am wondering, is this ETF approval going to be micro or short-term bearish? Again, maybe we're going to have an overall 30% correction, or this time is it going to be bullish? I don't know. Guys, I do videos every week on the Bitcoin rainbow chart and all things crypto, so subscribe to get more of that content. And also, I'm watching the alt season index because it looks like alt season. Does this not look like we are getting ready to shoot up possibly? So maybe great value is coming into the alt markets. Going over to the charts, the S&P 500, I wanted to show you guys how I have these trend lines drawn. Now, I could have just drawn a channel because the lines are pretty much parallel to each other, but we have this lower line and this upper trend line. They're pretty parallel to each other, but you can see how the price has been bouncing around between that, and it looks like maybe it's coming up again somewhere around the 5,400 level, maybe before coming down. So anytime we get to the lower part of this channel and around the 100, 200 week moving average, there's pretty good value here. And you can see how rare it is. Let's put this on auto. How rare it is to hit the 200 week moving average as well as that lower trend line. It doesn't happen too often, once every 2 or 3 or 4 years. So the 200 moving average, 100 moving average, and of course I have this big channel drawn ever since the dip of the great financial crisis and these peaks. These peaks have also been hitting the upper part of that channel just like it did in January 22. And right here we have this peak that we formed right before the very dip in October 22. This was in August. And so if we get above that peak, that's pretty bullish. And maybe we draw a trend line, something parallel with the one underneath it from right here. I'm guessing here. I'm just throwing numbers out. But if we scroll down and we look at possible targets for the S&P, this would be around 6,000. Up here's around 6,500. Not saying that's going to happen, but it's just interesting, something to keep an eye on. Next, let's go to the VIX. The VIX tells us when we have some volatility in the markets. It's the volatility index, as you see. And anytime that the VIX is above 25, tends to be good areas to dollar cost average in. Again, we look for value in the markets when there's fear. It's kind of like what Warren Buffett says. I am not a financial expert, by the way, or a financial advisor. I do have experience, knowledge, and certification in the field of psychology that I've used to my advantage when investing. And so when there is a lot of fear, when there is a lot of FUD about stocks, I look for value. And if I believe in them, and I like the balance sheets and what the charts say and all that stuff, then I look at getting into that stock. So Anyways, here, as you can see with the VIX, anytime it's 25 or higher, tends to be good times to buy. 30, more rare, 35, 40, those tend to be very good deep value times to buy. So just something to keep an eye on, because right now, the VIX, we are at low volatility. We are at low volatility, so things are looking good in the markets. So just be cautious. And this should also show you, don't chase anything because you're worried about missing it, because there are a lot of stocks right now, like NVDA, who we're going to talk about in a bit, who are a bit extended. Going over to the US 10-year versus 2-year, this shows us that when we are under the zero line, that we have a yield curve inversion. When the yield curve uninverts, gets above the zero line, typically a recession is soon to follow. So here it inverted briefly in 2019. We had the COVID crash. Here, these preceded the dot-com bubble and the great financial crisis. We've been quite inverted for a while. And also when we uninvert, typically when this uninverts, happens within a month or two of when the first rate cuts happen. I'll show you that on the S&P 500 here. So going over to the dot-com bubble and the great financial crisis, this red vertical line was when the first rate cut happened after rates were being held higher for longer. And the bottom of the market was about a year and a half, 2 years later. So again, the uninversion, you can double check the dates if you don't believe me, but the uninversion and the rate cuts were within a month or two of each other, and the bottom was over there. So are we going to get something like this? Or are we going to get something like in the 70s? Now, those white vertical lines, you can double check what I've put on here. These white vertical lines were each peak of inflation. There were 3 peaks of inflation throughout the 70s. And you can see how those peaks of inflation were pretty close to the bottom of the market. Now, our last peak of inflation wasn't the very bottom of 2022, but it is one of the most deep value times you could get in there. So anyways, when we are peaking in inflation, if that is going to happen again, keep an eye out. Now, if inflation's hard to get under control and the economy is starting to get so broken that the Fed can't cut rates yet, it's possible things can come up like stagflation. So that's starting to be talked about a little bit more. Be prepared and just know that it's possible if we are getting bad inflation again, then maybe we don't see something like as clean as the great financial crisis or the dot-com bubble. Maybe we get something more like the 70s. Again, this was that white line, the peak of inflation, and that was when we last had good deep value time between the 100 and 200 week moving average to buy some deep value on stocks. Again, no one can time the market or buy the absolute bottoms and sell the absolute tops every time. That's impossible. But we can look at these moving averages. We have the gold, the 50, the light blue, the 100, and the dark blue, the 200, that we can look at. We also have the RSI down here. That's the relative strength index. Now, when these RSI peaks were going up and the price is going up, that's bullish. But if this RSI only peaks here and the price does go up, and so we're looking at the price going up, but the strength going down, that is bearish divergence. That could mean in the medium term that we could go to the downside. With Bitcoin, crypto, real quick, on the weekly, you can see that the Heikin-Ashi candles, we have not had a solid candle close or a complete candle close above the former all-time high in 2021. That's this gray line here. So until Bitcoin has a close with a candle above that line, I don't know if we're just getting ready to come back down and maybe accumulate here for a little bit. So let's get to the earnings reports. Let's first talk about NVIDIA, just because I'm sure a lot of you guys are excited about that, especially if you didn't watch my last video. NVIDIA had a gigantic move, and already right here, you can see possible bearish divergence. We'll see how strong this gets on the RSI, but going over to the daily, let's zoom in a little bit. We had this giant candle. Let's just go back to the last few days. And if we measure this out, I mean, look at that move. Inside of a day, they moved 12.4%. We're talking about a stock that's worth 2.6 trillion. So 2.6 trillion, I'm just doing on this phone calculator I got in my hand right now, times 12%. I'm just going to do 0.12. That's $312 billion. being injected inside a day. That's crazy. Now you can see why. We had very good earnings reports. So if you like NVIDIA, great. I have talked about how I drew this fibs, and you can get the fibs right in here, the fib retracement tool. I drew a fib from the high to the low, and when you take your fib off of log scale, go to the settings, take it off log scale. I do like to look, because we look at investing on this channel, not trading. I do like to look at the possible price targets. And we got these fib extensions. I have the 1.09 as a fake out catcher, but the 1618, the 2618, the 3618, if you notice, price went right up to those fib lines. The 1618, the 2618 went down to the 20, the 3618 went down to the 50, almost all the way down, and it broke through. So the next target with these fibs, if we zoom out, the next target for the 4236 is 1120. So watch for NVIDIA around there. If you got any NVIDIA down here, something to think about, guys. It's only been a year and a half, and it's gone up 700%. So when things go up this fast, this quickly, you might want to consider taking profits, because again, this is a $2.6 trillion market cap. How much higher can it get? I don't know. Microsoft, Apple, they're at around 3 trillion. So even anything around there is maybe around the top of what it could get to, in my opinion. So maybe it has a little bit more room to run up to this 1100 mark, but after that, I don't know. Going over to other stocks. Let's look at Zoom. I know that's something we all use, and they, if I recall, they did very well during right after the COVID dump, and that was one of the stocks that all the stimulus money was pumping. So let's take a look at Zoom Video Communications, and oh boy. So yeah, taking a look at Zoom here, going on the weekly, you can see here how, now let's put this on auto, and look at this move. This must have been, yeah, December 2019. Look at that, all the way to this point right here around November, October 2020. It moved up 830%, and it's just come all the way back down. It's at this level that we were at all the way back here. So if you like Zoom long term, look at this. The RSI is starting to build up, so strength is building. Maybe this has good deep value. Again, take a look at the balance sheet. Do they have good earnings compared to liabilities? Actually, let's take a look at that right now. We can go over to, I like this site, Market Watch, and we can just take a look at Zoom. I'll show you how to do this. And so you go down to financials, and then it'll pop up the balance sheet, and you just take a look at the ratio and make sure the higher the ratio, the better. And you also look, there's other things to look at too, like the trend, like is the trend moving up or down for earnings and or assets and other things like that. So total current assets around 7.7 billion, and total assets around 10 billion. Total current liabilities 1.67 billion. So that's a pretty good large ratio. Total liabilities 2 billion. So that's like a 5-to-1 ratio for the totals. Yeah, that's pretty good. But again, look at the assets and liabilities and the percentage, is it going up or down? Right there, it's going down. So just some important things to look at. But right there's some positive things there in Zoom. And maybe this is an area to, if you use Zoom, you like Zoom, you think Zoom is going to be around in another 10 years, then we have some deep value here. But, zooming in, are we getting lower highs, higher lows? Well, here, lower low, but right here, this is definitely a base around that 59 level. It can't break through. So on the daily, you can see here with Zoom, it's between the 50 and the 100. So it's got to get past that 100. And even when it gets above the 200, it's got to hold it. When it gets above the 200 or touches it, it can't just have this fake out and keep coming down and having lower highs. So maybe Zoom still, we have this downward trend here. Just overall, you can see that for yourself. We have this overall downward trend. Maybe we'll see what Zoom does out here, because, if it just keeps kind of going down and then really drops through the floor, obviously that would be very bad. It's got a market cap of 19 billion. So Yeah, that's what we have on Zoom. No point in really drawing a fib for it either. Any others we have here that of products I use and like? Not really. So next, let's go to AutoZone. I go to AutoZone sometimes. They have good people, good products. Get in the zone, AutoZone. Not sponsored, not affiliated in any way. So AutoZone, let's go over to the weekly. I like to take a look at the monthly and the weekly. Man, you take a look at the weekly, you already can see this is a strong stock, a strong chart. It has a market cap of 48 billion. But what do you notice here? Anytime it's at the 100 or the 200 moving average, those are good deep value times to buy. And AutoZone, ever since 2020, has been riding this 50 moving average all the way up. And what else you notice is we are at the 50 moving average, or a wick down to it. So if this is a stock you dollar cost average into, this isn't the worst time to dollar cost average in. Now, if it gets below the 50, you might be dollar cost averaging in all the way down or under. But as far as the weekly moving average, I look at the 50 week or the 200 day as far as areas to begin dollar cost averaging in if I really like that stock. And even the RSI here is under, or it's just about getting under the 50. Let's put on our buy sell signal indicators. Here's one I like. And yeah, so far this weekly sell signal has been playing out. Now it got the strong wick and the body's right around where this wick was. So let's go over to the daily and look at that. We're on the 200 day as well. So possibly a good area to DCA in if you do like AutoZone. But let me say this, and I'll keep saying this. If you're ever buying a stock or you're really committed to buying a stock and you're like, okay, I'm buying the moving averages and stuff, and all of a sudden we get a green buy signal and you're like, okay, I'm buying it. If you like it enough to buy it here, should things go down lower, then you should love buying it here. And you should really love buying it here. That is something I'm going to talk about on this channel, because here in Market Psychology, you have to do your own research, and we want to kind of flip our thinking, because what happens a lot of time, people are like, okay, I'm excited, good value buy here, and then as things go down, they're like, well, shit, maybe I should sell it, sell at a loss, and why would I buy in more? It's just going down. Again, you have to do your research and make your own plan, because if you really like it, if you really love a stock, you like it, you use it, it's going to be around 10 years. As far as I know, AutoZone, it's been around for a while. I could see it being around 20, 30 years from now, I hope. Anytime I get down here, I'd be like, hey, let's throw in more. So AutoZone looks like a pretty strong stock. It's got a very strong chart, and right now, not a bad value area to buy. But again, if you are buying here, don't invest more than you can afford to lose, and set a budget. Maybe set a monthly budget. Maybe it's $500 a month. I don't know. Throwing out some numbers. And should next month it go lower, you would still feel comfortable getting in. Again, I'm taking a look at long term, that maybe 5 years from now, you are seeing some great profits. So that's what I'm hoping for. But again, I'm not guaranteeing anything. Next, let's take a look at Lowe's. I'm sure with home sales really dipping, that obviously some of the hardware stores might be suffering because of this too. So curious what Lowe's and Home Depot might be doing. So Lowe's right here, I want to draw a fib for this, because you can see how much it's ranging up and down. So let's draw a fib. We're going to do a fib retracement. I'm going to go all the way from this prior high, because it looked like we got near the prior all-time high there, to the low. So you can see here, high to low, and we're going to make sure that our fib is on a log scale, because we're looking between those areas, the high and the low. Not at price targets, but just between. So right here, Lowe's, it's on the 50-week moving average, and it's on this fib line that is the 618. So it is still playing out a sell signal. If you want to wait for confirmation, a buy signal on the green candle, you can, but right now it's still bearish. Going over to the daily, you can see here it's holding on. It's not holding on anymore. It's underneath the 618 and the 200 day. So maybe Lowe's is going to come down here to around 211, as the 0.5 has some structure there as far as price goes, and it has the 100 week moving average. So if you really like lows, you use lows, that could be a good area to buy. And any others in here? Toll Brothers, I think they're chocolate, right? So, sometimes we use products and we don't even think, do they have a stock? So, look around your house. Maybe I'll give you guys some homework. Look around your house. What are some products you use and that you like? If you can confidently believe that, hey, this is going to be around in 10 plus years, you go to Market Watch, you take a look at their assets, liabilities, and you look at things like Samsung. I don't know, what else is there? I'm wearing a Garmin watch, things like that, Nike clothes. You can start to look at the charts and be like, hey, am I getting a good value? Pick out your stocks. Maybe write down a list of half a dozen to a dozen and narrow it down, find stocks you really like, and just check those stocks on TradingView every week, just once a week. Even if you made a list of half a dozen stocks, it doesn't take long. You could just check it once a week and take a look. Where's the weekly candle? It's red. Maybe it's good deep value. I might throw in 100. Nah, this looks kind of crappy. I'll wait for confirmation. Okay. Deep value, confirmation. We don't have to make this hard. So that's something you can do. Do write down a plan so you can react and capitalize when things are at deep value, that you don't miss it. Let's take a look at Target. I used to go to Target all the time as a kid with my mom. I remember one time she let me choose a Ninja Turtle toy to buy. I wanted two. I was 4 years old, okay? So, don't rag on me too much. She said I could only have one. I wanted two. I started freaking out, and then I got none. So, good job, Mom. Hey, that was good parenting. So anyways, let's take a look here at Target and look at this. All the moving averages are converging. It's really red. Man, what a bad candle that is. Now, we did get the strong wick and support right above that 50. I want to draw a fib on this one. So let's take that fib again, and we're going to draw it from the high. Now, second little wick looks like the high to the low. And what do we notice here? And it looks like we're on a log scale, but I always want to make sure, is that we are right at the 382. Now, for a stock to continue looking bullish to me, there's two things I look for. One, is it above the 50-week moving average? Yes, for now. When it gets below, that's when things are reversing trend to the bearish side, which we have. Maybe we had this big dip, just to come back up and we're doing a higher low. I don't know. But is it above the 50? And if we do look at prior highs and lows, is it above the 382? Right now it is, and it's holding. We have the 50-week moving average and the 382. Guys, I don't know about you. I hear a lot of bearish news about Target. And, when is the bullish opportunity going to come? Because a lot of that bearish news, that's the type of news that keeps us away from buying things, buying certain stocks. Now, is Target going to be around in 10 years? I don't know. Is Target as good as it was 10, 20 years ago? My bias, no. Maybe you feel differently. That's fine. But there's a couple of things here we can't ignore. One, let's take a look at this. We got this trend line. We got this trend line coming down. And I know we're going through that one wick here, and it's not perfect. I could probably draw it better. Do we do something like this? Sure, why not? It's kind of connected back here. Let's just move the target to our advantage, but whatever. Or maybe we draw it more from the candle. Again, this is part of where, you just play with different things on the chart. Sometimes it lines up, sometimes it doesn't. Kind of the candle body lines up a little bit better. But we do have this descending trend line that we've now created on this chart. So can it hold above the 50, this 382 level, and get back up? Now, me personally, if I like Target stock, I don't. But if I did, I would wait for confirmation of a reversal. I'm curious, if we go to the monthly, yeah, look at that. We just got a monthly sell signal. So is it possible we were just, here we had, some people could say accumulation, it's on the 50, and then boom, it fell through. And the 50 month went down to the 200 month, so it's getting a sell signal. Maybe it's going to come down to the 100 month, or God forbid the 200 month, around 100. So if it does get down to those, that tends to be the deepest value time to buy. Look at that. Great financial crisis. It got a little underneath, but that's as deep as it got. 2017, that's as deep as it got. Look at this again, October 23. So maybe it's going to come back down to these levels, and those tend to be great long-term values to get in the target. But make sure if you are buying it that you like the product, and you like the stock, and you like the balance sheet, all that. Do as much research as you are willing to do. I was curious enough to look at Ralph Lauren and INTU. I wanted to look at that one too. So maybe we end with those two. Is Ross shoes, if I recall? Yeah, I think it is. Let's take a look at Ralph Lauren. I'm curious. So Ralph Lauren, RL. I know nothing about Ralph Lauren stock. So right here, look at that. That's pretty bullish. Here, things are going sideways for a bit. Let's go to the weekly. So yeah, weekly, that even looks like better accumulation. You know that we had this big dip down here. Great accumulation here from February 21 to November of last year. And just like the stock had a strong move up, so is Ralph Lauren. Now it does have this very long skinny candle here and a weekly sell signal. So, you know, it does look like maybe it's coming down to test the 50, and we have some price structure here. So the 50 and the price structure around 147 right there. Not feeling as good about Ralph Lauren overall. Looks like the stock got a little extended and it may come back down, but maybe here it could go back up. So, you know, one thing I do look at, you know, watch this. Usually there can be, not usually, but oftentimes a 50% retracement. So right here, you know, we moved up 76% from 108 to 191. So that moved up, it moved up around 83 points. And so where would 41, 42 points be? Look at that. 41, 42, even 44. Around a 50% move down, retracement would be around this area. So maybe, you know, it did that big move up, 50% move down, and then boom, goes back up. So something to watch for if Ralph Lauren's continue to be bullish. INTU, taxes, all that stuff. Again, market data is not enough to predict future results. So many YouTubers you get, they try to predict things and they get obsessed with predictions. Don't be like that. No one knows. INTU. This looks pretty bullish. This looks pretty good. It's staying on the 20. Man, INTU. Looking strong. Weekly went down to the 20 moving average. Now, when stocks are looking bullish, you know, I talked about when it gets under the 50, you know, that's a reversal of the trend. Got under the 50, went down to the 200, was riding the 200 week. Man, that 200 week held. That's why I like moving averages. For me, it takes the stress and the guesswork out of when to get stocks and these buy signals. And, you know, if we're just trying to be value-minded investors and we have the stocks we like, this is all you need. You can use the RSI once in a while too, or draw a fib. But, you know, this is all you need right here. It's like, got under the 50, okay, wait for deep value. You know, if you're buying the $100 and $200 dollar cost averaging in, man, all that value you would have had here, you'd be doing really good right now. So INTU, looking very strong, came down to the 20. As long as it's bouncing off the 50, off the 20, things are looking pretty good. That has a market cap of $185 billion. Of course, do your research, look at the balance sheet, get into the weeds a little bit, just to make sure that the company's looking strong. And Google, use Google to look at the good and the bad, so you can look at things, look at stocks like a robot, if you will. Remove your emotion, because we can't have bias. You know, look at the good things with the stocks that you might want to buy, and look at the bearish news, the bad news of stocks you want to buy. Weigh all those things together, and if you're still feeling pretty good about it, and it fits your plan, and the conditions of the price and the markets, you know, meet that of your plan, then heck, get in. So anyways, hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know if you guys like videos like this. Of course, if there are any stocks or altcoins available on Coinbase, Robinhood that you would like for me to chart, let me know in the comments below, because during my next stock or Bitcoin videos, I'll put in some quick analysis. Sometimes I do videos for different altcoins available on Coinbase or a bunch on Robinhood. And of course, I do videos on Bitcoin mining stocks and the Bitcoin rainbow chart. People seem to like those videos a lot. But let me know, are there any stocks that you're interested in? I'm also trying to show you how I chart so you can do this too. And that we're all here to help each other grow a community. A lot of crypto communities, stock channels, I see things get really toxic. I'm not about that. As a consultant and the work I do, I'm about helping people and people helping each other grow and learn things from one another. So that's the type of community I'm looking to build. But here are two really good indicators: the EMA 2050, 100, 200, and you can make the lines more solid so they're more visible. And the 10-20 moving average crossover with Heikin-Ashi signals. This is more of a leading buy-sell signal indicator with the red and green dots. If you want more that is less prone to fake outs and more confirmation, UT bot alerts is a good, very good buy-sell signal indicator. But you can just use those two, draw some fibs, and you're looking pretty good. But again, no guarantees. Don't invest more than you can afford to lose. And I encourage you guys, set a budget. Set a budget, write down a plan, write down a list of 10 or so stocks, do your research, and if the stocks you research fit your conditions, they look good, they don't look like crap, set your certain percentages of how much you would invest. And, if you get good value on where you're buying, then cool, you can use that budget to invest in. Sometimes this is me with my budget. If my list of stocks, if none of them are at good value and they're extended, then I won't buy in all the time. Sometimes I'll pool that money for the next month and then the month after and really unload when stocks are at even deeper value. If I like the price structure, if we're looking like we're getting ready to bounce off the 200 and we're staying at the 200, good fib levels. That's part of how I make my plans. So anyways, hope you guys enjoyed, and I hope you all have a wonderful Memorial Day weekend. I'm not going to do another video until probably Tuesday. I'll do a Bitcoin rainbow chart video. But yeah, I plan on kayaking, getting out on the water, and doing a bunch of fun stuff. So hope you enjoy, be safe, and thank you for watching.